Okay, it is 8:30. I will call the meeting of the Planning and Economic Development Policy Committee to order at 8:30. We'll start with the approval of the minutes. Councilmember Gardner and Jurinsky, are you good with the minutes?
Yes.
I'm good.
Okay, very good. Minutes are approved, and we'll move on to our first item, which is the Visit Aurora presentation. Bruce?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Councilmember Bergan. Good morning, PED committee members. Again, my name is Bruce Dalton. I'm president and CEO of Visit Aurora, and I'm here today to walk you through Visit Aurora's 3-year strategic plan. But first, I'd like to touch on some of the current trends happening in the tourism industry. The first quarter of 2025, the lodgers tax collection in the city of Aurora were down 17% from the first quarter of 2024. And this was a direct effect from the decline of business travel and federal government travel. Aurora's destination marketing fee collections for the first quarter were down $66,000 from our budget projections of 2025, which directly affects our 2025 budget. We're working with our board and our hotel partners to find some help from the decline. This plan will include Visit Aurora's promoting our Aurora hotels through online travel agencies and developing a bleisure-focused campaign highlighting Aurora's comfort and care for business travelers. Bleisure is a combination of business and leisure travel. The good news is that Memorial Day is right around the corner, and summer months are traditionally our busiest months of the year. Trends continue to increase back to years past for the summer, and we expect strong attendance for our sporting events, including the Triple Crown softball tournament, which leads right up to Friday, July 4th, which is a good thing for our hotels. And planning in 2025 for the Aurora Borealis Festival is well underway. The Borealis Festival is scheduled for October 10th and 11th at High Prairie Park in Painted Prairie. And we're finding that sponsorships are a little tighter this year than last, but we're committed to continuing to build a great festival with the goal that the festival will eventually be self-funding in the future. Which brings us to our 2025 strategic plan. Next page. And next page.
Is it supposed to be that small? Sorry.
If I blow it up anymore, it cuts past the picture off. So
okay.
I can if you'd prefer.
No, that's fine. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay. And next page, please. So the plan builds on what we've achieved and looks ahead to what we must do. It's a focused roadmap to grow demand, protect our market share, and make sure every dollar we invest in tourism brings a return to Aurora's residents and businesses. In 2023, as reported by Dean Runyon and Associates, the city of Aurora generated $405 million in direct spending receipts, directly affecting restaurants, hotels, attractions, and small businesses, which also helps sustain local tourism jobs and drives revenue into the city's general tax base. For many businesses, tourism is the difference between staying open and closing. Next page. Building on the successes of our previous strategic plan, the strategic plan pillars of our plan are sales and marketing, destination alignment, organizational strength, and destination management. Next page. So our process started in July of 2024 when Visit Aurora partnered with Mission to Market, a marketing agency that works extensively with the Colorado Tourism Office and many other DMOs around the state of Colorado. We surveyed our entire staff and our board of directors to determine key issues and opportunities to incorporate into the plan, followed by bi-monthly meetings with staff leadership. Next page. And in September of 2024, we held a board workshop to deepen the conversation about Visit Aurora's future and create the draft plan. We facilitated meetings with each one of our board committees to understand further the goals and the strategies of each pillar of the plan. As a result of these meetings, a 3-year strategic plan was developed and approved by our board of directors in November of 2024. Next page. So our board of directors is led by our board chair, Rick Crandall, the executive director of the Colorado Freedom Memorial. It also includes our city council liaison, council member Stephanie Hancock, deputy city manager Laura Perry, and we've also recently included and added Lori Troji, who's the chief of staff of the Fitzsimmons Innovation Community, and Ginger White Brunetti, who's the director of library cultural services for the city of Aurora. And I've been in my current role for 8 years. Next page. So this is who we are. Our mission and goals and core values haven't changed since we developed them in 2022. Our mission is to build and empower an inclusive world-class destination. Our vision is to be internationally known as the gateway to the Rockies. And our core values are adventure, collaboration, creativity, diversity, and service. Next page. So this is a chart that breaks down our paid media budget for 2024. And here's some of the other recent efforts that are included. In 2023, we went through a complete year-long rebranding process. In 2024, we launched a new marketing campaign incorporating our new branding to attract meetings, convention, and leisure travelers. And in 2024, we launched the Aurora Borealis Festival, which hosted over 15,000 attendees, 541,000 views on social media, and 83 pieces of media coverage leading up to the event. We also started the Aurora Brewery Tour under the direction of Visit Aurora, which is now called Cheers Aurora, and doing very well. Our destination services team continues to work with meeting planners to develop tailored plans for hosting events in our hotels. Many use the Gaylord Rockies Resort and Convention Center as their convention center for hosting larger groups. They can host up to groups of 7,000 people, which is larger than most U.S. cities around the country. We also produce a long list of resources, including our 5 neighborhood guides and 175,000 copies of our annual visitors guide, and mail it out to our residents. This guide creates a very strong community alignment. Next page. Next page. So diving deeper into our strategic pillars of our plan, it starts with sales and marketing. And our number one goal is to maximize sales opportunities by evaluating and understanding the current business and lost business that we provide. Developing group business plans around group sales, vertical strengths, which are markets in specific categories, and address lost business challenges. To create stronger opportunities for our sales team to connect with meeting planners by creating face-to-face in-market events that showcase Aurora. We did this last month when we went to Washington, D.C. and hosted 2 events, one in Alexandria, Virginia for 40 meeting planners and one in downtown Washington, D.C. for 50 planners, which were hugely successful. Our marketing strategy is to offer marketing co-op to tourism-related businesses in Aurora. Next page. Highlight Aurora's unique neighborhoods through videos and online content to celebrate its cultural identity, attract diverse visitors, and foster local pride. And evaluate the current marketing programs for ways Visit Aurora can further support local businesses, attractions, and their local events. Destination alignment. The strategy is advanced economic development. As the voice of the visitor economy, work with the city, the Chamber of Commerce, and Aurora Economic Development to pursue and track tourism-related economic development opportunities. Develop economic development materials targeting potential investors of hotels, attractions, restaurants, and festivals. Create and distribute visitor economy updates to businesses, to media, and also to civic partners. Also engage community, conduct surveys that will build business opportunities, market segmentation, and ways Visit Aurora can help grow business. Distribute a resident survey every other year containing benchmark questions for resident sentiment. And develop a destination ambassador program highlighting Aurora as a whole, as well as each visitor-ready area. Next page. Organizational strength to explore new funding streams to fund strategic initiatives. Event management, evaluate and define Visit Aurora's role in event creation, ownership, and management. This can either be through continuing to develop new events or going out and finding new events and attractions and bringing them to the city. Destination management. Cultural tourism development, create cultural and tourism development plan to enhance cultural experiences and attract visitors seeking unique and cultural opportunities. We're actually currently working with the Colorado Tourism Office on a grant to help us provide some research and development of that program. And community resources allocation is develop visitor experience grant programs to supply or to support existing local events and work with the organization to determine the value of tourism for these events. So I'd like to end with revisiting the priority of our goals, and they are to increase overnight stays through business, group, and leisure travel, support product development such as festivals, venues, attractions, and in hotels, expand destination awareness both locally and nationally to generate tax revenue, and to align tourism strategy with citywide economic development goals. So I thank you for your time today and allowing me to walk through this plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
All right. Thank you, Bruce. Do we have any questions from our committee members?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Councilmember Gardner.
Thank you. Thanks, Bruce, for the presentation. Appreciate it. I want to ask specifically about special events. I know it's something you and I have visited on. And so I'm just curious, plans in that area. I noticed specifically one of the strategies under organization strength was evaluating event management role. Is that tied into that? Is that something separate? Obviously Aurora Borealis Festival was, hugely successful, and I think, kind of proof of concept of your organization's ability to run special events. So just curious kind of what future plans are in that space.
Yes, I think we're open to all opportunities. I know our destination management committee has had conversations with Laura Perry, and that has included Stephanie Hancock, Councilmember Hancock, on different ways that we can get engaged and involved with, any festival or event that either could be potentially coming to town and or possibly taking over some of the responsibilities of other festivals in the city.
Great. Thank you.
Any other
Councilmember
questions? Yes, Councilmember Jurinsky.
Thank you. Bruce, I'm just curious, what you talked about sporting events, softball tournaments. What tournaments are you directly responsible for bringing to Aurora?
So we work with the organizers of the events, depending on their needs, which mainly include hotels and or helping sell the destination, like Triple Crown Sports, which oversees and manages the fireworks tournament. We've been working with them since I started in this role for 8 years, as well as whether it might be a frisbee, like a ultimate frisbee, other events that just either the city turns to us to try to find hotel rooms for, or they come to us asking for assistance and directing them to the pros department for reserving the space.
Okay, I was just curious because, I have been here my whole life, and before I actually owned JJ's Place, almost 2 decades ago, I worked there when it was America's, and that is right next to Olympic Park. And so long before Visit Aurora existed, I have seen numerous softball tournaments come into town, and they come into town on their own because of facilities like Olympic Park that we have. And I'm assuming that, they were able to find hotels and such when they were coming here 2 decades ago. So I think I would like some more information as to specifically what you guys are responsible for in terms of bringing into Aurora. And then you spoke about the Gaylord, but the Gaylord themselves has said that there isn't actually much that your organization does for them. They have their own team of folks. The Gaylord is a massive, massive hotel corporation, and they have their own folks who work towards bringing in events and bringing in shows and bringing in conferences and different things like that. And then on top of that, for hotel stays, we don't get any sales tax dollars from the Gaylord. So I also question, how heavily you put Gaylord into your presentation. And like I said, they say that they have their own team that does all of these sort of things, and that sometimes you try to piggyback and take credit for their events. I also have some concerns around your personnel and personal expenditures. The AEDC, we give about $500,000 a year to. Naomi, I know you're online. You can correct me if I'm wrong. We give the Aurora Chamber about 75,000 a year. Is that correct, Naomi? Correct. Okay. Yeah. And so Bruce, from us, from the city of Aurora, in between our lodging tax and what we have allowed you to do with the $2 charge per night, you get roughly $4 to $5 million from us a year, versus 75,000 that goes to the chamber and 500,000 that goes to the AEDC. And one thing that I do have concern with, and these are the small things that sort of stand out to me. But if you look at the office space that the AEDC is in, and then you look at the office space that the Aurora Chamber is in, and then you look at where you're at, and where you chose to be over at the Stanley, I can't imagine what your overhead is in rent over there. Just that alone, and then what you have in personnel. You just displayed that you've brought even more people on. I don't know if they're paid or volunteer positions. I'm not sure. But your overhead is somewhat concerning to me. I have had a group of hotel owners, and the numbers are growing, that have approached me, that are working with some individuals on the business advisory board. They worked ferociously against the $2 fee per night stay in Aurora when this was brought forward. They felt they weren't heard. They felt that they weren't listened to. They feel like, and they believe that they can prove, that one of the reasons some of our revenue is down in hotels is because of this $2 nightly fee. So if someone comes to Aurora and they stay a week in a hotel in Aurora, they have this random $14 charge on their bill when they check out. They don't have that in Denver. They don't have that in Parker, Commerce City. None of our neighboring cities have a random fee. And some people really do look at their bills. I would be one of those who really does look at their bill, especially when I check out of a hotel, because who knows, there's been all kinds of random fees added to hotel charges in the past. So I wanted to kind of point all of these things out, and then just in our lodging tax alone, so I wanted to make you aware that this group is growing of Aurora hotel owners that are very upset. They fought against you and this $2 nightly fee to begin with. The numbers are growing every day. I have a new hotel owner that has heard about this, has found out about this group, that has reached out to me, that is very upset about this $2 nightly fee. The lodging tax alone, if we were to just talk about the lodging tax, I believe you received $2.4 million just on the lodging tax, if you take out the $2 nightly fee. And again, when we talk about just the lodging tax, $2.4 million. Again, we give the Aurora Chamber 75,000 a year, and we give the AEDC 500,000 a year. So the lodging tax for me, I think really should be looked at. We have some very critical public safety needs in Aurora. And, Bruce, I'll be honest with you. I know this got back to you because you went and completely redid your website, but I spent a lot of time on your website. And what I saw on your website, and I did capture all of this. I have all of this. So I'm not just saying this, but I have all of this. I did capture that most of the events that you are highlighting in Aurora are specifically for the Stanley Marketplace, and different events that jumped out at me was drag queen story time, drag queen bingo. And so ultimately, those are the things that your organization is promoting, and potentially sales tax dollars from the people of Aurora are going to that, but you heavily promote the Stanley Marketplace. You heavily promote things in that area. Another thing that jumped out to me, and this was what was brought to me in this movement amongst the hotel owners in Aurora, is how much you are promoting Denver hotels. So I looked into that a bit. And again, anybody who goes to your page now, you've completely redone this. But I looked into this and I spoke to some of the Denver hotel owners and I said, well, how are you being promoted on the first page of hotels on Visit Aurora? And they said, oh, well, we just pay a flat rate. We just pay, 200 and some odd dollars a year, and we get to be members of Visit Aurora, and we get to be promoted on the Visit Aurora page. And not only are they promoted on the Visit Aurora page, they had been up until I think you found out about my concerns just a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. They had been promoted actually on the first page of hotels for Visit Aurora. So Denver hotels are being very highly promoted for a flat rate of 200 and some dollars a year, whereas Aurora hotel owners to be promoted on the second page or the third page, which is what I saw, they are paying essentially a fee that they are having to charge their customers of $2 a night to stay at their hotel. I see that as a gross inequity towards Aurora hotels. I'm not even sure why we would be promoting Denver hotels or anything to do with Denver, quite frankly, with $2.4 million in lodging tax from the city of Aurora, and this, which I was also told equates to about the same amount in this $2 nightly fee that you're collecting, because I'm told you're getting almost $5 million from us a year. Bruce, I really struggle after conversations that I have had with the Gaylord. My knowledge, my historical knowledge, being in Aurora, working where I worked for a number of years, and I now own that location. These sports, a lot of these softball tournaments, they have come in for decades. This is not something that necessarily you did. And what I was hoping to see in your presentation today was more of a path forward to self-sustainable funding. Because Bruce, I've got to be honest with you, I am going to at some point have to take a stand with these Aurora hotel owners. And at some point, I believe that our public safety needs in Aurora are more important than promoting drag queen story time, drag queen bingo, and even the Aurora Borealis. That may have been a success for some people, an impact of roughly 15,000 visitors. But I can tell you that we need 2 fire stations that will have an impact on roughly 120,000 people in Aurora. So those are my comments. And I do feel very strongly. And this is not meant to necessarily be an attack against you, Bruce, but I was really hoping today to see more of a path forward to sustainable funding. Again, we give the Aurora Chamber $75,000 a year. We give AEDC $500,000 a year. You are collecting almost $5 million from us. And in my opinion, I have not seen the fruits of the labor of that funding. And I do believe, Bruce, that you do sort of piggyback off of events that have been here for decades. And it is no secret that the Gaylord, as massive as they are, they have their own marketing department and bring in a multitude of events on their own. So at some point, we are faced right now with potentially going to our voters and asking for a tax increase. And with what I know that we give you out of our budget, I am really, really struggling with that, And those are my comments.
Okay. I don't know, Bruce, if you want to respond. I see Councilmember Sundberg had his hand up as well.
Yeah, I would just like to respond and say that Councilmember Jurinsky, I am more than happy to sit down and meet with you and discuss the tournaments, discuss the Gaylord, discuss the Stanley Marketplace, discuss the BAB, as well as the taxes that we receive, as well as the destination marketing fee. I am proud of what we've accomplished and what we've done in the city. And I know that a lot of people throughout the city are as well. And I would love to be able to further educate you on some of our strategy and some of the things that we do as an organization that really benefits the growth and opportunities that exist in the city of Aurora. I've been working for 6 different destination marketing organizations. 3 of them have included Gaylord properties. The reason why I was brought here and recruited to this position is because of my experience and knowledge with Gaylord hotels. And I would certainly enjoy the opportunity to sit down with their ownership and explain and have them explain to you the benefits of bringing me to Aurora in this role and responsibility. But I would open and look forward to that opportunity to speak with you, council member.
And I would be happy to. I have your email, and I would be happy to. Just know that these are things that I've heard directly from the Gaylord. So,
Councilmember Sundberg.
Good morning. Thank you, Bruce. You've heard me say it before that sports tourism is such a beneficial thing to our city. Sports Illustrated magazine recognized, and Naomi would remember this, Aurora, Colorado as a sports town USA. It was an honor. Naomi and I go back to the fireworks tournament, I think like 26 years. So that thing's been around for a while as a huge economic shot in the arm when it comes to town. I know adult softball in general has waned significantly while pickleball is up, golf is up, tennis is down. So Bruce, a couple of questions. I'd like to know what new sports tournaments are coming our way, what we're trying to attract. And secondly, it seems as if possibly the 225 corridor of hotels is maybe waning and losing some love when it comes to promotion. It used to go as far south as the Radisson, which is now closed, but the Gaylord is obviously this economic hub and catalyst for attraction. Even Denver hotels along 40th. So I'm saying, please don't forget, the 225 corridor, as there's more economic activity to the north in certain ways. So I'd like to just lay that out there for you, Bruce.
Yeah, a few things. I think we really try to promote all different areas in Aurora, including, Havana Business District and Southlands and other areas. And because our office is at the Stanley Marketplace, which generates 2 million visitors a year into our destination, doesn't mean that we spend all of our time focused on the Stanley Marketplace. And addressing the actually events. The events are driven by people actually providing the information to us and then us submitting them to our website to be able to promote all those events. And we don't discriminate against the events that are going on in the city of Aurora. As far as the tournaments go, back from the start when I was started here 8 years ago, one of the things that was happening is we were going out and pursuing sporting events at different sporting conferences and then coming back. And because of the occupancy of the sports park, we weren't able to accommodate a lot of the business that we were going out and finding for the city. And because the city owns and operates the facilities, they determine exactly what is going to be booked and the price that they pay. And a lot of times we don't have that negotiating power. I did meet with the city manager last month or the month before to talk about a strategy on developing patterns in which we can take blocks of time and actually go out and pursue to fill those with or with tournaments that are actually traveling. We also don't have a convention calendar of the events that are hosted at the Aurora Sports Park or any of the parks. If we could work with the city on providing or getting a list of that, then we can provide that to the residents as well, or to the businesses, to be able to accommodate the needs of either additional staffing for restaurants and or tracking, the economic development of each one of those tournaments.
Councilmember Bergan.
Yes, Councilmember Jurinsky.
Thank you. So I just wanted to kind of highlight what Steve said. For those of us that have been here for a very, very long time and involved in the bar community for a very, very long time, the fireworks tournament, a lot of these tournaments, they go back decades, long before you were here, Bruce, or your organization. And so, yeah, I would like to see what it is that you feel that you have done to bring new sporting events. Because the other thing that stands out to me, that I forgot to mention, is we have worked very, very hard internally with our pros department. And in fact, we just hired a new director, and our pros department is going to become much more business centric. And they have received the memo from council that we want to obviously keep the tournaments that we've had for all of these years, but they have received the memo that it is their job to be bringing in new tournaments and attracting new sporting events and getting up pickleball courts. I just attracted an entire cricket league to Aurora, and we had to go through that meeting. So the city of Aurora itself is attracting more sporting events, and that has been at the direction of council. Because side note, I do find it unacceptable that our general fund has been supplementing our pros department $10 million a year for however many years. So the direction has been given that they are to start bringing a lot of sporting events to Aurora. And Bruce, I also looked into it. And look, I'm not a socialist that believes that somebody should only make X amount of dollars a year and the wealth should be spread around. But I really have looked into your organization, and it is my understanding that you're making somewhere around $200 and I believe $76,000 a year. You add that onto the rest of your staff and personnel, your overhead for space at the Stanley Marketplace. I just question, Bruce, how much of the funding that you are taking from the people of Aurora, when we have very, very critical needs on the table, just towards your overhead alone. So yeah, I just wanted to echo what Steve said. A lot of these tournaments that you mentioned, for those of us that have been around, especially in the bar business for years, these tournaments have been here a long, long time. So I feel like a part of your presentation was somewhat disingenuous, to take credit for some of these sporting events and also to talk to the Gaylord. And like I said, I'm happy to sit down and talk to you, but I think the folks from the Gaylord would like to be at the table. I think the group of hotel owners would like to a seat at that table as well. Their numbers are growing. They are tired of this $2 fee on them. They believe that is why they are losing business to Denver hotels and other surrounding area hotels. They fought against you and that fee in the first place, and they feel like they weren't heard. So Bruce, I expect this fight to come back. And in your presentation today, I heard not one thing mentioned about a path forward to self-sustainable funding other than one grant that you have applied for. So ultimately, I'm just very disappointed.
Well, and Councilmember Jurinsky, that obviously I'm not here to debate all these issues with you, especially in front of the PED committee, but I would like to sit down and talk to you about it. I don't think that the goal of Visit Aurora was ever to be self-sustainable. I think that the way destination marketings are funded are very similar in the rest of the cities around the country. It's not unique and different to our city. And I'll be happy to address a $2 destination marketing fee, as well as the rest of the production that we provide to the destination. And like I said before, I'm very proud of what we do as an organization. We've grown the organization. I think when you grow an organization and increase the funding of the organization, there's always going to be criticism, and we have to fight every day to prove that we're worth what we do as an organization that benefits the destination and marketing and bringing tourism to our destination. As far as my salary goes, I was really sad that you presented that to the entire committee. And it is public knowledge, as well as the other organizations that work with the city of Aurora. And my compensation is very comparable to other destinations of our size. And again, I would be more than willing to sit down and talk to you about it. We've provided all of our finances to you, and I will continue to work with you to develop a strategy on you understanding further the benefits of our organization and what we do. So thank you.
Okay. And just in closing, thank you, Bruce. I just had a question. You said lodger's tax was down 17%, and you said why, but I didn't note that. I was just wondering what.
So the first quarter was down, and it's mainly because of transient business as well as government travel. There nationally, those trends are nationwide, but specifically in our hotels and really the 225 corridor, as Council Member or Mayor Pro Tem Sundberg had mentioned, Buckley is affecting those hotels significantly. And when government travel is down, as well as their vendors and their providers of materials and goods, those are the people that travel and stay at those hotels, and it's really affecting them, quite a bit.
Okay, but that's just first quarter is what you're comparing
First
it
quarter,
to from
correct.
last quarter. Okay,
Yep.
All right, thank you. And then I'll just add on having more sports type of events. When I first got on council in 2015, prior to that, I was on the CABC for 4 years. And one of the things under the Citizen Budget Committee was that I brought forward was to build another sports park because we were at capacity. And so I would love to see that. Actually, sorry, Steve, but in Ward 6, I think it would be perfect next to the Southeast Recreation Center, and that would open up some opportunities. Anyway, thank you very much, Bruce. Appreciate your time.
Thank
And we
you.
will move on to the housing UDO analysis update.
Thank you, Chair. Janine Rustad, Director of Planning and Business Development. I am very excited to report today that we have kicked off the project. So we have retained Multi-Studio with a subconsultant IRS. It's a very dynamic team that they're already starting the code audit to see where we can make improvements to allow for increased small lots, which of course should help the attainability of housing. The bench they have includes, and don't hold it against him because it's me too, a planner attorney, landscape architects, architects as well as engineers. So it's very dynamic and we'll get to all the needs that we need to look into with our code. As I mentioned, they're underway with doing the code audit. We had our kickoff meeting last Friday. They are refining the schedule, so we will bring that back to you. There is going to be plenty of stakeholder engagement. This is going to be done through listening sessions. Those listening sessions will include our internal partners here at the city, developers. We'll hold facilitated roundtables with the developers, but then also education sessions, with the general public so that we can bring them along to show that density, if done right, is a good thing for our city. They are going to work on some topic papers. Those will include price and financing because, of course, the whole point of doing this is to lower the price or cost of housing. Transportation costs, those impact, transportation impacts both the cost of housing, but also the livability of a neighborhood. So we need to balance that. We're going to look at forecasted demographic changes because I've even heard developers say it. When they're doing their master planning, it's not necessarily for today's population, it's for today through 10 or 20 years. So we want to make sure we're hitting the targets. And then looking at broader policies, whether it's from the city or the state that can impact the cost of housing. Of course, we want to look at in the UDO, not only restrictions on the amount of small lot housing we have, but also for any housing, the parking requirements. Is a one-car garage sufficient? Building materials, while we want quality, lasting homes, is a percentage brick, for example, the right way to get at good design and quality? So hopefully by next month, we'll bring you back a detailed outline of especially when we're going to be engaging with certain stakeholders. We will be taking advantage also of the Development Review Advisory Board. So a lot to come in a short period of time, and I will take any questions.
Great. Thank you, Janine. Just in terms of, I think that's great that you're doing all this collaboration with the different stakeholders. I think that's going to bring valuable input to the process. Are we going to look at our zoning? Because it is very confusing with 5,000 million different zoning.
Absolutely. And that is their first step with the code audit. Where do we have the hurdles, the roadblocks? Where is it too complicated? So yes, that is absolutely in the scope.
I think, and not only for developers, but just even for our residents, just understanding the difference between an R1 and an R2 and why is it different in sub area A, B, or C. Those things I think we want to work through.
And a good thing that some of the differences between the sub areas were taken care of with the process updates that council approved just a couple months ago. So we're looking at what more can we do on top of that. Absolutely.
Great. Any questions from our council members or committee members, I should say?
Nothing for me.
Nothing from me.
Thank you very much, Janine.
Thank you.
And we'll go ahead and move on to the setback requirements for plugged wells. Is that Jeffrey Moore?
Yes, it is. Thank you very much. Good morning,
Jeffrey.
Mr. Bergan and committee members. Jeffrey Moore, manager of the Energy and Environment Division here for the city. Let me share my slides here and we will get started. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time this morning. Looking forward to bringing this topic to you. It's one we've been mentioning for quite some time, and we feel like we've got a really good landing place on this. We've worked strongly with the development community over the last year to get to a set of regulations that we think are going to work really well for the city and really provide for the future. This is really not just about today and tomorrow, but it's talking about 10 years from now and further decades out into the future. So without further ado, as a reminder, plugged wells are ones that have ended their life. All the surface equipment has been removed and there's been cement placed inside the pipe under the ground. That pipe is cut off under the ground level and buried, and you don't see anything else left at the surface. We have 68 wells in Aurora now that are currently plugged. We will have hundreds more in the future because all of the currently producing oil and gas wells will be plugged one day. So you move 25, 30 years in the future, and those will be plugged as well. About half of those have been replugged since 2020, so the last 5 years. We do believe that most wells will need to be replugged in the future. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is to stop leaks. Fortunately, we've not had any leaks here in Aurora currently, but we do know other jurisdictions that have had those. To avoid risk, protect aquifers, which of course is very important to Aurora because we own the water in the aquifers below the city. And then the state does require replugging of certain wells before drilling a new one within 1,500 feet of one of the old wells. That's the reason that most of those repluggings have occurred recently because of Crestone Peak Resources and others' work that they've had to do prior to drilling new wells. When we replug a well, the main thing that we need is space. We need space around that well. Now, this is the graphic that I've shown before. This is an actual replugging that occurred in Aurora. It's the Metzger well. It's down in the South Shore Community Park, HOA Park there. We have to be able to bring the drilling rig in and place it right over that pipe in the ground. And then there's a variety of other equipment that has to come in order to support the work to do it safely and effectively. So it's that space that we're really working to provide through these setbacks. Surrounding jurisdictions, including Adams County, Arapahoe County, Weld County, all have this setback in code already. So we're kind of playing catch up with our surrounding jurisdictions at this point. Because these rules and regulations apply not to oil and gas operators, they would apply to surface owners and future developers. We have worked extensively with the development community, as I mentioned, on the specifics, and I have a slide that I'll show you in just a second that talks about some of the changes we've made over time to better align with the expectations of the development community. We have landed on a three-pronged process for this. The first is what we call the setback area. The setback area would apply to the land and the property owner. And the goal there, again, is to provide the space that we need around these plugged wells with no structures inside. We would accomplish this by adding setbacks to the UDO. The main parameters are no utilities within 25 feet, no buildings within 50 feet, no residences within 100 feet, and the size would be 150 by 150 square feet, which 150 by 150 feet, which results to a square footage of 22,500 square feet, or just about a half an acre. The benefits here is that this space can be used for parks and open space as long as it's in compliance with the pros manual, parking lot, and some other features. So it's very usable space within the development community. The second prong is our easement. Now, unlike our original plan that we had put together, this is going to be a very limited easement only to city staff to access the area to do an annual soil test, just to verify that there's no leaks that's coming from the well. We would do this through a signed easement document, very similar to navigation easement, the way those are done now. It would be permanent, runs with the land, and applies only to the surface, and again, allows the city staff to access that area for a non-invasive soil test. The final step is the replugging authorization. That would apply to a licensed operator through the state, through the Energy and Carbon Management Commission. The goal would be to repair wells if repair is needed or bring them up to modern standards. And there's two things that would be necessary to establish that. First is the state permit to do the work. And the second would be a surface use agreement with the landowner, whoever that is. That was really important to the development community, that they had some ability to control what happens on their property. We think that's a very reasonable request. And we've now, that would be required moving forward. In terms of the main parameters, it requires the operator to reclaim the surface back to the original state. And we do believe that protects people and the environment by allowing the repair of leaking wells or preventing pollution. Now, the next graph, it's a lot of words here, but I want to just really show you how we've worked with the development community and changes that we've made over time. In terms of authority, originally the city had authority for most of the decisions. We now have a shared authority between the city, the landowner, and the state. The size, we started out with a 200 by 200, which is in acres, is just about an acre. And we've now reduced that to a 150 by 150, which is about half an acre. Originally, we had just the easement and all the setbacks were resident in the easement itself. We've now dispersed that to have setbacks in the UDO and then that limited easement to the city, as I just mentioned. In terms of locating the well, we do still require the developer to physically locate the well and survey it so that it can be placed on the site plan. We've not made any changes there. The records of the state are sometimes, they're close, but not exactly precise in modern terms of where that small piece of pipe is in the ground. So we do require the developer to physically locate those wells and survey them if they haven't been located and surveyed in recent times. Originally, we had asked the developer to determine the condition of the well themselves and to actually replug it if it was leaking. We're now changing that to say that the city and the state will determine the condition. And generally speaking, the state would replug wells if there's no active operator for that well anymore. The state would replug it as part of its orphan well program. For utilities, we reduced the above ground utility from 50 feet setback to 25 feet. Below ground utilities is also at 25 feet still, but we have a provision that allows the city engineer to reduce that further if necessary. Site access, we're still requiring a 24-foot width. That's driven by Aurora Fire Rescue. In the case of I'm going to show you a graph in just a minute, a picture, the Metzger well, that park was adjacent to a city street, so there's no specific access that's required to it. It just is right next to the street, so it's easy to access. Any existing structures that have already been constructed of any kind, homes, buildings, commercial buildings, anything that's existing today, if this is approved by council, would be exempted. So no changes are needed with existing structures. And the residential setback is still 100 feet. Let me show you a visual. This is an aerial photograph of that Metzger Park in South Shore. The yellow dot is where the plugged well is. And if there were a setback in place there today of 150 feet by 150 feet, here's what it would look like in the red outline. So it's within the boundaries of the park. It's surrounding the well. And then as you add the other features in, we'll zoom in here. The utility setback is a radius, so 25-foot radius around the well. Building setback is 50 feet, and then the residential setback would be 100 feet. Now, the reason that we express those separately from the 150 by 150 is because in the case on the screen, the well is more or less in the center of the setback area. That's not always required. The setback area could be shifted, and in the case that the red box is shifted so that the well is more in the corner, then you would have these other setbacks that would also still apply. So how can this setback area be used once it's developed? So if it's a rural area, it can remain agricultural livestock. There's no change to that use. If it's an urban area, it can be a park or open space, as I mentioned, as long as it's in compliance with the PRO's manual. It can be a parking lot. We've approved a well over a detention pond. So we've been working with the development community pretty strongly over the last couple of years to make sure that they can make the best use of the land that they have. So we're very proud of that work. And again, this is the picture of the park where the Metzger well is, where the red star is. You can't see it from the surface, but it is there, and we can access it in the future again if we need to. One final slide. We had a few additional developer comments and questions that came in last week after we had prepared this agenda item. So I wanted to present those separately to you. One of the questions was, what standards would we use to determine when the setback area is 150 by 150 versus the larger 175 by 175? We realized we may have inadvertently created some confusion in the way that we structured the ordinance. So what we're intending to do, if this passes through PED today, before it goes to Planning and Zoning Commission, we are going to remove reference to the 175 by 175 and simply state that the setback area is 150 by 150 or an equivalent 22,500 square feet. It does not have to be a square. It can be other shapes or an irregular shape, but it has to have the area, that space, to be able to bring the equipment in. Another question was standards. What standards would guide the planning director in a variance decision if the developer applies for a variance? That is allowed and available. And we've just added language here from the oil and gas manual to say that a variance that's approved does need to remain protective of public health, safety, welfare, the environment, and wildlife resources. And of course, as any variance that would come up under the UDO and city code, those could be appealed to city council if there was a concern from the development community. Proximity to other sensitive land uses. This is a really good addition from developers. And we believe that it's appropriate to add schools and hospitals to the residential setback. So we're intending to do that 100-foot radius residential setback. We don't think it's really going to apply to very much in the future. Most of the plugged wells are north of I-70, and there's very few schools or hospitals planned in that area at this time. So, but we do think it's appropriate to add those two features as well. And then finally, we confirmed that multiple wells, when they're in proximity, like we have some of the modern well sites where we have 8 to 12 wells per pad, yes, the setback area would be allowed to overlap around those wells. So it's not half an acre times 10 if there's 10 wells. There is an overlap there as long as there's access to each of the wells. And then finally, there was a question about what volume of gas would be considered a leak. And we still maintain that any measurable amount of gas is a leak. If there were to be methane in the soil would be remediated as part of the replugging plan. So the state would control that. and would require that to be cleaned up at the time that the replugging or repair was done. We went to DRAB last month. We're at PED today. If you approve it to move forward, we will take it to the Joint Task Force end of May, and then on to Planning and Zoning Commission, and then to study session and council after that. And I appreciate your time today. Really think this is an important opportunity for the city to preserve this space around these plugged wells for the future, and be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Questions from council members?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Can you go back to the slide, whoever's controlling it, with the different circles and the red square on it? Thank you. Okay, so I'm not quite understand. Well, let me first say thank you for all your work with the development community. I know you and I have talked a couple of times offline about this, and I've talked to several developers, and they've been able to pass along their concerns. So I really appreciate you working with them on this. So my question, I'm not quite understanding, because if there's a residential setback of 100 feet in any direction, that's going to be a greater setback area than 150 by 150.
Yes, thank you for your question, Councilmember Gardner. Let me go to a backup slide, because I've got this and I can show you visually, and I think it will make a little better sense. So here's again an example of a well with 150 by 150 setback area around that. We've got the other circles that we just mentioned. And like I said, in this case, if we shift that red area, right, so that the well is no longer in the center, then there is some additional space, around this. So in terms of answering your question, the setback area is going to be whatever it is. So the developer has, flexibility in how they plan their development, how they plan their different, features and their proposed development around the plugged well. We do work with the development community. We review every pre-app that comes through the city. We look at master plans when those are submitted, and annexation requests. So we try to get in very early to identify any plugged well that a developer would need to work around, and let them know about that as early in the process as possible. So your question is, essentially in this case where it's shifted, are we talking about the red square plus the green square? So there is the green circle, sorry. The green circle, yes, applies only to residences and hospitals and schools. Part of that is because, when you set up a rig on the well, it's going to be generally 100 feet tall. We want to make sure that, there are state ECMC rules that say you've got to be a certain distance away from buildings, right, when we set up a rig, because if something unexpected happened and the rig actually collapsed or fell over, you don't want that to be, in proximity to some of these buildings. So again, the developer has the opportunity to structure their setback area, around the plugged well from the beginning. And we do work with developers to structure that as carefully as possible.
Okay, so to make sure I understand, I think I do, but maybe I'm being dense. So like in the example you have up on the screen, and if the well is in kind of the corner of that square, there still cannot be any residences within 100 feet in any direction. So potentially their setback area would be larger than 150 by 150?
For residences, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
If you go back to the case of the Metzger well, where we have the picture earlier, in this particular case, you've got a park. And in this case, not every case would be the same, obviously, but in this case, you've got the park and you've got streets around the park, right? So in this case, there weren't any residences proposed within that green circle, regardless of where the red square would be. Yes.
If I may, and because Councilmember Gardner, I have to have Jeffrey really dumb it down for me, being new to this area. The way I look at it is that 150 by 150 setback is for the staging and plugging the well. The 100 setback is for safety, as Jeffrey pointed out, for that rig. If it topples over, you don't want it hitting a house. Or if there is a blowout, that is what has been deemed is a safe radius. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, I get that. I just, I don't want to be overly burdensome in terms of like, oh geez, we're taking away you know, I don't know how many acres of potentially developable land. I mean, so I'm just trying to kind of think about that and what that's going to look like, you know, because a lot of we're putting this rule in place, and a lot of it is going to be wells that are, you know, plugged, and we're talking about developing around 10, 20, 30 years in the future. And so I just want to make sure that we're, you know, thinking about what the consequences might be in terms of what we're taking away as developable land. I do appreciate the carve out for residences versus, like, let's say a commercial or industrial warehouse structure or something like that, because I do think, you know, the space needed should be less on those. So I like the tiered approach. My other question is, and I think I asked you this before, but I don't think I ever quite got an answer. What do other communities have in place? Like you mentioned Weld County and some other places like that. What are their what does it look like for them?
Sure. Great question. So this is an order of setback area in terms of acres. So Garfield County on the western slope would be the very smallest with a 25-foot radius. Adams County and Broomfield are about 1/10 of an acre with 50 by 100 feet. Weld County is a 50-foot radius, which is 0.18 acres. We're there at 1/2 an acre as our proposed. Town of Erie is 1.62 and Arapahoe County is 4.5 acres.
Yeah.
Based on
Okay.
their most recent rules.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I think, you know, we don't have to talk about Weld County, I guess, but Broomfield is, you know, a jurisdiction that's well known for, I think, pretty aggressive or, you know, safe oil and gas regulations. And we're proposing, you know, going beyond their setback. And so that's my only concern is, are we taking away too much developable land with this? You know, obviously, residential structures, that's one thing, but I just, you know, a lot of the development that's happening in the northeast part of the city, I don't want to take away, you know, development that could generate tax revenue for a scenario that, you know, the likelihood of having to re-access a plugged well is relatively low. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the likelihood is relatively low. I mean, I've talked to oil and gas community, and plugged wells, older plugged wells, that's one thing, but more recently plugged wells, the likelihood of having to access those is still pretty low. So anyways, I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. I appreciate the comments and I appreciate your concern. And we are definitely working as hard as we can with the development community. You know, in terms of replugging, I would say that we had a well that was originally drilled in the 80s. It was plugged at that time. It was replugged in 2020, and it's had to be replugged yet again this year. So the idea that a well that's replugged to modern standards will never be replugged or never be re-entered is really not true. We have an example here in Aurora where that's not true. In terms of the development, you know, other things beside residences, again, we've worked very closely with the development community. Here's some examples right here: the Denali Logistics in the Sun Empire. These are buildings, commercial buildings that were built, you know, in the last couple of years around plugged wells. The wells were re-entered, replugged prior to the operations. They're now under a parking lot, but we have access to them. Very easy. So there's warehouse structures around that. There, in these examples on the screen, there was zero loss of developable acres. So they had no loss at all because they have a parking lot there that they're going to place already.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I mean, just to be clear, I didn't say they would never have to be re-accessed. I said it's a pretty low likelihood. But yes, you know, again, to go back to my first comment, I want to acknowledge and, you know, appreciate your efforts to work with the development community. I've heard from, when this first came up, you know, I heard from a lot, and I know you've done a lot of work to kind of make this as palatable as possible while still being safe for our, you know, residents and businesses and things like that. So appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Jurinsky, do you have any questions?
Nothing from me. Thank you so much, Jeffrey.
And I just want to thank you also for working with the development community. I mean, I think a lot of us have heard from them about concerns when the process was first started. And I'm glad you're also going back to the JDF after this meeting just to get any final input from them. So appreciate that. My only question was on the inspections, because you mentioned city will and state would do inspections. Does that increase our our workload, or does that fall mostly on the state?
Thank you for the question, Councilmember. No, that's something that's already planned with our current inspection program. So we're talking about a once a year soil sample, or not a soil sample, but a non-invasive soil test. So it's a handheld meter, generally speaking, that we're just going to be walking around that site, determining if there's any elevation of hydrocarbons in the air of the soil. So it doesn't take long to do. It works within our current workflow. And the city would do that on a regular basis. The state does not do those unless there's a known issue. So if we did observe something, we would coordinate with the state and ask them to come and do an inspection as well to confirm our findings, and then we'd work with them from there.
Okay, great. Very good. Thank you so much for the presentation. And I guess the question for our committee members is whether to move this forward.
That's fine with me.
I approve.
Okay, same here. So that will move forward. Thank you very much. Okay, and next we have miscellaneous matters. I think we have a report from Yuri with AEDC.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hi, thanks. Yes, there's so much going on. I had to make some notes for this, but I won't be too long and keep everybody. But yeah, it's been an interesting first few months of the year for us. We're seeing good activity. Our pipeline's as full as it has been the last couple of years, so that's a good sign. We've got a few deals done that will bring in around 300, 400 jobs. We've got another couple of deals lined up that will also result in about 300, 400 jobs. So we're on pace to have another good year, but companies are cautious. So it's been a mixed bag of folks and deciding on timing and capital and making location decisions. The state's prospect pipeline is 80% full of manufacturers and energy related companies, which is unprecedented. And that's, I think akin to what's going on at the federal level and the headlines that we see. It's going to take time, right? Reshoring is not an overnight deal. We're going to need different kind of equipment that's either produced here or brought in here to this country as well. The workforce, the manufacturing sector already has a larger gap in skilled workers than any other industry. So we're going to have to really lean on our education partners around here to dial into that. And I think they, of course, are doing that. And so it's been interesting to follow what people are thinking about, what people are hearing about, and what we hear generally kind of on a broader scale. So the state is not doing as well as it has in the last couple of years. The rankings for business environment, population growth, wage levels, all of the, housing costs, they're all over the place, but ultimately pushing down our rankings from being in the top 5, I think, for the last 5 or 6 years to now being in the middle of the pack, maybe even lower. So that's concerning to us. And we're trying to figure that out as we talk about where the cities are and where the metro area is at in terms of attracting new employers. And and contrary to that, though, we're still voted one of the top 100 places to live. We're the Defense Community of the Year. Thank you, Chamber of Commerce, for all their work on that. And so there's some positives out of that, but statewide budgets, local budgets, as everybody on this call is aware of, are definitely making people pause and think about what they're willing to invest in the next couple of years. Just a quick update on vacancy rates. The industrial market saw a lot of development in the last 18 months, and it did not get absorbed as quickly as it had been. Last year was a little slower. So there's a lot of space on the market. The vacancy rate is up to 12%, which is higher than it's been in a while. It's not concerning, but it's just higher, and there's more availability and supply. Office rates are holding steady, both in lease prices and vacancy rates. So that's okay. We continue monitoring those companies that lease larger chunks of space and what they're doing with remote work still being a factor in decision making in that industry. And I think we're seeing a lot of companies wanting to figure out how to be in Colorado, but again, just figuring out the timing, right, of what's going on at the, with headlines and what they want to do, generally speaking. So we have 3 new business parks that are coming online that are in the planning stages or funding stages. So that's good news. A lot of them are in Arapahoe County. So that makes us feel a little more confident that the development community is still positive and trying to determine how to continue supplying future demand. So that's good because it's always a couple of years worth of entitlements to get to a good place. In terms of some other initiatives of ours, we're working with both Arapahoe and Adams and the state on the enterprise zone redesignation. So that's a process that happens every 10 years. We were intimately involved in it last time. We got a lot of census tracts and blocks included in that were primed for growth. A lot of times enterprise zones in principle are areas that have lower income, lower migration rates, higher unemployment rates. And so a lot of times the census tracts will count a lot of developed residential communities as qualifying. And so we tried to carve out blocks of residential zones that don't get the benefits of enterprise zones, and try to include there's population limits. There's a lot of calculus to it. I won't bore you with that, but we're working with both counties to get as many census tracts included in this year's redesignation. That'll happen at the end of the year. And so January 1st, 2026 will be the new boundaries that will take effect. There is a bit of grandfathering into if you're adjacent or in an existing zone and are making business capital plans based on being in an enterprise zone and getting tax credits from the state, and then falling out of it, there is some grandfathering in as that. So we're working with some businesses that are facing that. We continue to work with Excel with all of the concerns about power and grid resiliency and affordability. There's some PUC filings about natural gas and generation and transmission capacity. So we've actually convened some stakeholders to participate in that PUC process. And that's been great to be at the table of those conversations and have a voice. We had a successful trip to DC, as a few of you on this call know, advocating for our industry. So that was another good round of conversations with our delegation and key members of DC's folks. So we'll continue working with our federal lobbyists on some broader issues. At the local capital, data center legislation, AI legislation, some other legislation didn't pass that we would have liked to see pass, so that the state could have shared the burden with incentivizing some of that industry and attracting some of that technology. We still got state designation for being a quantum hub, so it's a bit of a give and take in that regard, that we continue to talk to companies about and make sure that they know that we're still supportive of the industries, even though that there might not be incentive programs in place for them. And then it's Economic Development Week. That's nationally recognized a group, Association of Economic Development. They use this week to just get our story out of people that are working behind the scenes to help communities grow and change and evolve. So we're trying to get some social media presence out there with our marketing manager, and anything that y'all see that we should be touting, please send our way and we can include that. And I'll stop there. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Yuri. Any questions or comments from council members? I was just going to say, the state legislature has made it very difficult over last few years. So good work. I know you guys have to fight, for everything that you get. And we have some, unfortunately, we need nuclear energy that didn't go through the state. So there we go. But hopefully more optimistic future in our way. So thank you. Anyway, I know that Becky Hogan, Planning Commission, you wanted to make a report.
I do. Just very briefly, we have two things coming up. We have our annual workshop with planning staff, which is an opportunity to communicate clearly and in person. So we're looking forward to that. Secondly, we are looking forward to the appointment by City Council of a new planning commissioner. So that will make us whole again, if you will. So again, we're looking forward to that and hearing of your conclusion.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Any other reports from outside organizations? Sarah has her hand up. Sarah?
Yes, I'm here. Can you all
go
hear
ahead.
me? Okay, perfect.
Yes.
Good morning. Council Chair, council members, and committee. My name is Sarah Woodson. I am the new co-chair of the BAB, Business Advisory Board. And I just have one announcement. We are going to be launching our first crime forum planning for this year. And the meeting date has been confirmed for June 6th from 10 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the Element Hotel on Tower Road. And we're shifting our focus a little from financial crimes to property crimes affecting hospitality and industrial manufacturing businesses. So that's what we're going to be focused on for this first one. Commander Pendleton will present data and trends, focusing on motor vehicle theft and property crimes. And the forum is really going to be aiming to foster a relationship between business owners and the city. Of course, we're going to be providing refreshments. And then we're going to be leaning in on two of the council members on this call or this committee meeting to assist with marketing and outreach. And we're also going to be working with Visit Aurora to send out invitations to hotel owners. So if you all have business owners that are in those two sectors, the hospitality and manufacturing, please do share that information. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Garrett or Chance, which I believe is on this call today as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. What company do you represent, Sarah? I know you're the co-chair of BAB, but you represent a business?
Oh, yeah, I have several businesses in the cannabis industry.
Oh, okay, great. So you said it's June 6th I was trying to get it down. Did you say 9 to 12 or 8 to 12?
So it's June 6th from 10:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m.
Okay, 10:30 to 12. And then that'll be posted on like Facebook or so we can share it?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm going to circle back with Garrett and I'll be able to send out information, or Garrett will, about all the places that we're going to have it posted. But one thing I know is that we're going to be working with Visit Aurora to send out invitations to hotel owners. And so I'll circle back so I can know exactly the direction that we're doing to post the information to get out to community members as well.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Sarah.
You're welcome.
Okay, anything further? Oh, I see Naomi has her hand up.
Just real quick, I wanted to follow up a little bit with the information that Yuri put out. So on the city, we went out to the Association of Defense Communities, and it's an organization that is a worldwide organization that kind of talks about how they're supporting the military and the armed forces in their community. And as we have renamed our defense council, so it's more encompassing, it's called the Buckley Regional Military Affairs Committee. We won an award from them in regards to all the work that we're doing supporting Buckley. So we want to make sure that the city knows about it, because the logo and the award that comes with it, everybody can take credit because we all work together in supporting those people that are out there at Buckley. So information will be coming down the pike. We'll send you guys a logo, but one of the things we really want to do is make sure that the city knows about it so you guys can take as much credit for all the effort that's been done for our community here. So I just kind of wanted to reiterate a little bit more about what Yuri is talking about, but it's not our award, it's our award, right? It's everybody's. So that's all. Thank you.
I think it is your award. Aurora TV needs to feature it.
Good idea. I'll
Yeah.
reach out to them.
Okay. All right. Anything further? Oh, yeah, I think Sarah just still has her hand up. But okay. I think that is it for our meeting for PED. I appreciate everyone's attendance and participation, and we will see you next month, June 11th. Have a great day.
Bye.